शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेधसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीतायाः पतये नमः। गोष्पदीकृतवाराशिं मशकीकृतराक्षसं रामायणमहामालारत्नं वन्दे नीलात्मजम्। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविताशाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलं। वाल्मीकिर्मुनिसिंहस्य कवितावनचारिणः शृण्वन् रामकथानादं को न याति परां गतिम्। वेदवेद्ये परे पुंसि जाते दशरथात्मजे वेदः प्राचेतसादासीत् साक्षाद् रामायणात्मना। Om. Dear friends, as we planned, we are reading the first sarga, that is the first chapter, shloka by shloka. Thereafter, we will just get into the text and run forward. So the first chapter, as I said, is having exactly 100 shlokas, and we were reading the 88th shloka, where already the war between Rama and Ravana is over. And then Rama, he installed that Vibhishana in that empire, and then he was returning to Ayodhya on the aircraft called Pushpaka. He returned to that place called Nandigrama, and then he sent word to Bharata. Bharata is the brother who is administering the kingdom on his behalf. Paduke Chasya Rajyaya, we saw that. He had given his sandals, and then the sandals were kept on the throne, and Bharata was administering the kingdom on behalf of Rama by keeping the sandals of Rama on the throne. So that is what we saw. Now, Rama sent word through Hanuman that he has returned, and Bharata is again a very, very loyal, and also very loving brother. He was actually waiting for Rama, and he was already making a funeral pyre type of thing. If Rama does not return within 14 years, I will enter the fire and then I will burn myself. He was having that sort of ratham. So right at that time, Hanuman comes and then says, Lord Rama is returning. So everything is safely completed, etc., etc. He tells. Now we are at that place. Nandigrame jatam hitva bhratrubhis sahito nagah Ramas Sita Manuprapya Rajyam Punaravaptavan. Nandigrame jatam hitva. Jata, jata means the matted locks, matted hair. Because when they went to the forest, there was no question of, grooming the hair in the forest. Because in olden days, that is the reason why all these, rishis and all these people, they had very matted locks. They did not keep them, trimmed or anything like that. In fact, they applied some, the gum of the sap or a gum of trees, so that the hair really becomes matted, so that they need not bother for that. And then they lived like that. So there, he left all those jatas and then got them combed properly. And then Bhratrubhis Sahitaha Nagaha, and then he was probably along with the brothers. Then he got back and then sat on the throne, and then everybody was happy. Prahrushta mudito lokas tushtah pushtas sudharmikah niramayo hyarogasya durbhiksha bhayavarjitah. When the king is a very, very virtuous man, naturally the people also tend to be virtuous. So that is what is the picture. When the king is happy, generous, and when the person is doing all types of welfare programs, naturally people also are very happy. They are also contented. They get what is due to them. So that is what is being described here. Prahrushta muditaha. They were extremely happy. Lokaha, tushtaha. Tushtaha means santosha. Tosha. Tosha is santosha, that is happiness. Tushta means they were happy. Then pushtaha, well fed. Poshana. Poshana is, what is it? Feeding. Pushta means somebody who is well fed. They were very happy. They were well fed. Sudharmikaha. Not only that, they were also very righteous in their character. Niramayo hyarogasya. They enjoyed good health. And then durbhiksha bhayavarjitaha. There was no durbhiksha. Durbhiksha means something like a famine or a drought or any such situation. There was no such drought situation or a famine situation, because if the king is righteous, then even the nature is favorable to him. That is what our people say. When there is a dharmika rule, then even the nature is very favorable. Then, na putra maranam kechid drakshyanti purusha kvachit naryascha vidhava nityam bhavishyanti pativrataha. Then what about the family life? In the family life also people encounter various problems. Somebody's son dies or somebody's husband dies. So such things, such inauspicious things, they are said to be very inauspicious. While the father is alive, the son should not die. It is said to be a very bad, inauspicious thing. Similarly, when the wife is alive, the husband is not supposed to die, and then the wife should not become a widow or a destitute. So such things did not happen because of the problem, because of the say very righteous, virtuous rule of Rama. Then nacha agnijam bhayam kinchit napsumajjanti jantavaha navatajam bhayam kinchim napijvara krutam tada tatha. So there were no other natural calamities like fire accidents and then floods and things like that. Okay, the poet naturally takes it slightly high. Navatajam bhayam kinchit, nothing, no great calamity caused by winds, etc. And then no epidemics, napi jvarakrutam tatha, no epidemics or any type. Nachapit shudbhayam tatra. There was no say fear of hunger. Shut means hunger. Shudbhayam tatra, nataskara bhayam tatha. There was no fear of thieves and robbers, etc. Then nagarani charashtrani dhanadhanya yutani cha nityam pramudita sarve yatha kruta yuge tatha. So nagarani cha rashtrani, cities and states, they were all dhanadhanya yutani, they were all filled with dhanam and dhanyam. Dhanam is money, dhanyam is plenty of say eatables, all the grains, food grains you say, food grains. Then people were all very, very happy, just as in Kruta Yuga, yatha Kruta Yuge tatha. You see, in our say calculation of time, there is what is called a cyclical calculation of time. So there are two ways in which time is perceived by various cultures. For example, all the Oriental cultures, they have this method of calculating time in a cyclical way. We believe that there is this Srishti is in cycles. There is what is called Srishti, Sthiti and Laya. That is creation, say sustenance for some time and then again dissolution. Then again there is another Srishti. So like that Srishti goes on and on and on. For this, of course, we have to read a little bit of Vedanta to know why exactly this thing has been taken. Because Srishti is something which is anadi, we say. Anadi means something which is beginningless. Because unless we say that, we can't account for the diversity in human nature. There is so much of diversity. Somebody is good, somebody is bad, somebody is rich, somebody is poor, somebody is handsome, somebody is lame, ugly, etc., etc. If God were to create all these people, then why is God creating somebody very rich? Why is He creating somebody very poor? Why is He creating somebody a destitute? So we have to say that God is either whimsical. You can say God has all the powers to do whatever He wants. But then why should He be so whimsical? Why can't He create all people happy? Why can't He make them equally happy? So that question arises. So in our theory, in our theology, what they say is, God is, He does not favor anybody. He is not angry towards anybody. Vaishamya Nairghrunya Adhikaranam. There is an Adhikaranam in Brahma Sutra. Vaishamya is enmity. Nairghrunya is pitilessness. So lack of sympathy, total apathy, total lack of sympathy. So that is what is Nairghrunya. So God doesn't have any of these things. He is only a karma phala data. You are the doer. You are making your own destiny. And then, according to your say karma, He is giving the fruit. He is only karma phala data. So that is our thing. So when we take it back and back and back, then your janma is in accordance with the karma earlier. That is in accordance with another karma earlier. Then what is the original karma? You have to go back and back and back. So there is no question of going back in time, in the sense that you go back and back, you can't reckon time. So that is the reason why we say, in our tradition, we talk about billions and billions of years for even the age of the earth, and then for this Kruta Yuga and all this cycle of yugas, etc. So this, whereas other cultures, the Western cultures, they have got what is called a linear calculation of time. Linear. Okay, God at some point of time he started creation, etc., etc. Okay, that is according to their calculation, that was some 4004 BC or something like that, which many people they have now started disbelieving. Anyway, that is the calculation of time according to them. So this Kruta Yuga, according to us, that is the first in any cycle of creation. There are again 4 phases. There is a first phase, PHASC phase, where the people are more righteous. They start with some amount of say righteousness, etc. That quantum of righteousness is more. That keeps on declining and declining and declining and declining. And then in Kali Yuga, it declines so horribly that the whole world, for some reason it gets destroyed, maybe due to quarrels, internal quarrels or whatever it is, world wars maybe. And then naturally another Srishti takes place. So that is what is our theory. So anyway, this is speculation only. All this is what is called a sort of theological speculation. So yatha Kruta Yuge tatha. Just as in Kruta Yuga, say people were very, very happy. Then Ashwamedha Shatairištva Tatha Bahu Suvarnakaihi. Then he, as a king, Ashwamedha Shataihi. So he performed several, hundreds of Ashwamedha yagas. Ashwamedha is one particular type of yaga. Yaga means a sacrifice, a particular yajna we say. So in that particular yajna, in those days, not now of course, nowadays nobody does Ashwamedha. In history anywhere we have not seen any Ashwamedha. But this is prehistorical, let us say. Long ago, of course it is historical. Rama is a historical character. People must have performed all these things. That is the reason why we have got all this description of Ashwamedha and whatnot. Many thousands of years ago, probably it was there. And then where an Ashwa, horse, did I explain this Ashwamedha in the earlier class? No. Ashwamedha is, they bring a horse and then they set it free. They put a plaque on the forehead that if somebody is valorous, you can challenge my authority. So if somebody captures the horse, it amounts to challenging the authority of the king. So he has to fight. Either he will win or either this man will win or that man will win. So if that man wins, naturally this Ashwamedha is dropped. If this man wins, the Ashwamedha continues. So it is like that. So for 1 year it roams around, and the entire area where it has roamed, it will be the kings, the kingdom is not snatched. The kings are very much there. But then they have to accept this man's, say, supremacy. That is all. It is not as though their kingdoms are annexed or anything like that. So that is Ashwamedha Yaga. Of course, in Upanishads, there is a philosophical meaning given to Ashwamedha Yaga. That we will see when we come to this Ashwamedha. King Dasharatha is going to perform one Ashwamedha here. There we will see what exactly is the philosophical meaning of Ashwamedha and what was the actual ritual on the ground. So there is a ritual on the ground performed by Kshatriyas, by the kings. But there is another thing at a meditative level, at the Upasana level, what is called Upasana or the meditative level, there is what is called Ashwamedha Upasana. That is visualizing the whole universe in the form of a horse. Visualizing the whole universe. We know about the Purusha Sukta. Purusha Sukta, when you go to a temple, people recite, the priest recites Sahasra Shirsha, Purusha, etc., etc. That is what is called Purusha Sukta. The entire cosmos is visualized as a human being. So there in Ashwamedha, the whole cosmos is visualized as a horse. So that is only visualization. So that what is the difference we will see when we come to that Ashwamedha. So Lord Rama, he performed several Ashwamedhas. Tatha Bahu Suvarnakaihi. He gave, say, plenty of gold as, say, Danam. That is, he donated plenty of gold to people. Then Gavam Kotya Yutam Dattva. He also donated hundreds of thousands of, say, cows. Vidvadbhyo Vidipurvakam. Vidvadbhyaha. Vidwan means scholar. To all the scholars, as per the Vidhi, as per the injunction. Vidhi means an injunction. Vidhi is an injunction in the Vedas. As per the Vedic injunctions, he gave away, thousands and thousands of cows to all these scholars. Then Asankheyam Dhanam Dattva Brahmanebhyo Mahayashaha Rajavamshan Shatagunan Sthapaishyati Raghavah. Asankheyam Dhanam Dattva. that is incalculable, asankhyayam, you can't even count it. So it's that sort of money he is giving to all these, say, Brahmanas and all these people. Then Rajavamshan, Shatagunan, so he will establish hundreds and hundreds of small, small kingdoms. Rajavamshan, Shatagunan. So this solar race, of course Rama belongs to the solar race. In the same solar race, different people, they have kingdoms and in different places. So he will establish thousands of such kingdoms. Sthapaishyati. Then Chaturvarnyanja lokesmin sve sve dharme niyokshyati. There was what was called Chaturvarnyam. This word Chaturvarnyam we come across in Gita also. Chaturvarnyam means the four varnas. So four varnas should not be misunderstood as the caste which we see now. Varna, the meaning of varna is different from caste. Varna is something, it is a theological or a philosophical development, in the sense that varna means actually a mark of identification. Varnam. Varnyate iti varnaha. Varnyate, that which describes a thing, is called varna. That which describes, that is a characteristic, a particular mark of identification which describes a person is what is varna. That is, suppose some person is having certain characteristics, certain attributes, certain traits, personality trait as we call it now. So those traits, for example, somebody is very, very truthful, very, say, strict follower of, say, ahimsa, that is non-violence, and he has got zeal for knowledge, quest for knowledge, and he is very truthful, humility, contentment, all these things, they are called sattva guna. A person who is predominantly sattva was called brahmana, and a person who was predominantly having rajoguna was called, say, kshatriya or vaishya. Rajoguna of two types, one is to dominate people and one is to acquire money. And tamoguna, a person who doesn't have any drive and initiative, and then he is a dull person. So such thing is called, that is called shudra, tamoguna. So there was a classification depending on these marks of identification, that is personality traits. But over a period of time, so the society developed, so it underwent such changes that the varna is now almost indistinguishable from the caste. But originally varna was something which was a transferable thing. A person who of lower varna, lower caste, by virtue of good qualities, he could become a brahmana. For example, here Valmiki itself, we do not know his caste. Valmiki originally was a hunter, probably a tribesman. Now he has become a Dvija. He has become somebody who is well versed in Vedas, who is well versed in Shastras, etc., etc. So that is what we see. So Varna is different from caste. Caste is a sociological development. So that anyway we will not go into the details. Chaturvarnyancha lokesmin. So for every Varna there was a particular dharma, swadharma. For example, Brahmana, the dharma was, he was not supposed to acquire wealth. People think that Brahmins, they dominated and oppressed and whatnot. If you see all our old texts, we see that Brahmana's duty was to live by begging. In fact, Arjuna also starts with that thing. I want to bhiksham. He wants to go and do that bhikshacharya. That is bhikshatanam, like a Brahmin. He wants to go begging, like a Brahmin. So Krishna says, your duty is not to beg, it is the Brahmin's duty to beg. So the Brahmana was supposed to relinquish all his property, to renounce all his property, and then live on the munificence of the society. And then what was his duty? His duty was to study. His duty was swadhyaya and adhyapanam. Swadhyaya and pravachana. Swadhyaya is the study of the Vedas and also Shastras, not only Vedas but all the Shastras. He was the custodian of all learning and he was the custodian for teaching. So that was his duty. And it was the duty of a Kshatriya to protect people. If there is an invader, it is the duty of a Kshatriya to take up weapon and then fight. That was probably one of the weak points in Indian society. Because when people came from outsiders, it was only the Kshatriya clan which went for fighting. All other people, they did not bother much. Kshatriya clan, maybe some foot soldiers, etc. must have been there, but by and large, the whole society was not fighting. Only a small component of the society was fighting when the invaders came to India. This is another problem for us. So anyway, we can't undo what has happened in history. So here, So that is the picture of this Chaturvanyam and Swadharma. So Brahmana had this dharma of living a very, very simple, austere life. And in fact, Mahabhagavatam says one line, Brahmanasya tu dehoyam kshudra bhogaya neshyate kruchraya tapase chaiva pretyananta sukhaya cha. In Bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavatam, same sage Vyasa writes, Brahmanasya tu dehoyam, this deha, this body of the Brahmana is not for enjoyment. It is for kruchraya tapase, that is for very serious tapas. That for serious tapas means austerity, meditation, and then thinking. So that is his life. After he dies, maybe then he will be a realized person and he will have that Brahma, Ananda, bliss, etc., etc. In this life, you are supposed to lead a very, very simple, austere life. So that was the picture of a Brahmin. So, Svesve dharme niyokshyati. Then Dashavarsha sahasrani, Dashavarsha shatani cha, Ramo rajyam upasitva brahmalokam prayasyati. So here there is a statement, Rama will rule. Now it is all in future tense he is saying, because Narada came and told about Rama. Narada himself is saying, these are all Narada's words only, we have not come to Valmiki. So Narada is also telling the future. He will rule for 1100 years. Dasha Varsha Sahasrani, that is 10,000 years. Dasha Varsha Shatani, 10 hundreds. 10,000 and 1000, that is 11,000 years he will rule. And then Ramo Rajyam Upasitva Brahmalokam Prayasyati. He will rule the world and then he will get back to Brahmaloka. Regarding this 11,000 years, of course, naturally you and I will have a doubt. How can any man live for 11,000 years? So that is the reason why some people who are extremely, you can say devoted or extremely, orthodox, you can say, let us say, they say, yes, Rama lived for 11,000 years. But our own Mimamsa Shastram, Mimamsa, there is a Shastram called Mimamsa Shastra. There is one Mimamsa Sutra which says that in certain contexts like this, 1 year may mean only 1 day. 11,000 days, it can also mean that Mimamsa Sutram says 1 year, depending on the context and depending on in which type of occasion it is occurring. Maybe it is, suppose this is a kavya, it is a great work of art. In this great work of art, it is the duty of a poet to talk in certain slight hyperbole type of things. So here, or not even hyperbole, it is a convention, maybe a particular convention, a poetic convention to refer to 1 day as 1 year. So it could also be that. Then Ramo Rajyam Upasitva, he will perform his, he will do his kingdom, he will rule the kingdom and then he will go to Brahmaloka. Then at the end, Idam Pavitram Papagnam. So this is what is called Phalashruti. What do you get by reading this or by listening to this? That is, our minds become pure. That is what he says. Idam Pavitram Papagnam Punyam Vedaischa Sammitam Yah Pathed Ramacharitam Sarva Papaih Pramuchyate. That is, a person who reads this from this point of view, that it is this Vedaischa Sammitam. So there are two ways of reading this. He is saying, Valmiki is saying, the first way of reading it is as an elaboration of the Veda, as a sort of follow-up, book, the secondary text, after a follow-up for Veda. So from that point of view, Vedaischa Sammitam Idam, if you read from that point of view, it is going to purify. Papagnam. Papagnam means it removes all the papas, all the sinful deeds. How? Not by simply, not like a magic wand, by virtue of purifying our mind. By purifying our mind, it will ensure that all our bad actions are, we will not take up any further bad actions. And whatever bad actions we have taken earlier will also get, neutralized by some good actions. Dharmena papam apanudati, there is one rule. That is, even if you have done some bad acts earlier, if you are now doing some good deeds, your bad deeds will be neutralized. Dharmena papam apanudati. There is a Dharma Sutra. So like that, in that sense, all the papas will go, all the sins will go. Then, etadakhyanam ayushyam pathan ramayanam naraha saputra pautra saganaha pretya swarge mahiyate. For somebody who merely wants prosperity, for somebody who really wants some good results. So he will get those good results. Depending on what you seek, you will get. So etad akyanam ayushyam. Ayushyam means it gives you long health. First of all, it keeps your mind free. It gives wisdom, maturity. Then ayushyam patan ramayanam naraha. A mature person, a person who is having a quiet, tranquil mind, he will live longer. Only a man who is tensed up, he will lose his health, he will spoil his health, and then he will die soon. A person who is having a quiet mind will live longer, who has no enemies. Or at least he has to reduce his enemies. His internal enemies are anger, etc. Those things also we have to reduce. So, Patan Ramayanam Naraha, even a general reading will ensure him an entry into Swarga. Swarga is heaven. Saputra Pautra Saganaha, along with his family members, he will enjoy his life in Swarga. Then, last sloka is also important. Patandvijo vagrushabhattvamiyat syat kshatriyo bhumipatittvamiyat vanigjana panyaphalattvamiyat janascha shudropi mahattvamiyat. So it says, it is again referring to the four varnas, what we saw as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaisya, Shudra. What do these people get by reading this? Because this book is something which is intended for everybody. It is not something which is exclusively for Brahmin. It is for everyone. There is another misconception in our country that maybe spread by all our left-wing people, that all this Sanskrit literature was kept hidden by Brahmins. It is not like that. Sanskrit, Valmiki long ago has written like this, and Mahabharata, Ramayana, etc., they were all written for everybody. They were all written for everyone to understand the message of the Vedas. And then there are so many poets who are not at all Brahmins. There are so many poets and writers and dramatists in our, if you see the entire Sanskrit literature. So, okay, here what does he say? Patan dvijo vagrushabhattvamiyat. A Brahmana, if he reads this, his walk, his speech will become pure. That is, he will never tell a lie. He will be truthful. He will become a better Brahmin. That is it. A Brahmana will become a better Brahmana. A Kshatriya will become a better Kshatriya. Syat Kshatriyo bhumipatittvamiyat. A Kshatriya, he will become a better Kshatriya. He will become a better warrior. He will fight for the cause of righteousness. And then he will be a good emperor. He will be a good king. Bhumipatittvamiyat. He will attain that bhumipatitvam, that is lordship over bhumi. Then Vanigjana Panyaphalattvamiyat. If he is a tradesman, so if he is a trader, Vanigjana means a Vaishya, a trader, he will get all the wealth that is needed. That is, he also follows some ethics in that trade, and then he will make a lot of money. And then money, Panyaphalatvam, now money can be ill-gotten and well-gotten. That well-gotten money he will get, and then it will also give him happiness. Then Janascha Shudropi Mahattvamiyat. Even an ordinary man, a Shudra, he will become a better person, he will become a better human being, he will become nobility, he will attain some nobility. Mahattvamiyat. Mahatvam means greatness. He will attain some Mahatvam, greatness. So here we end, what this sloka says is, everyone has something to learn from this, and everyone gets something. So that is the reason why in Ramayana, nowadays we read, management people, they are also creating some theory, evolving some theories, Ramayana style of leadership. So something like that. You see many leadership studies from Ramayana. There are leadership studies from Bharatam, leadership studies from Gita, etc. So similarly, many people have written about the leadership qualities of Rama, leadership qualities of somebody else, etc. So many management principles. So like that. The basic point is, it purifies our samskaras. All our bad samskaras will be neutralized by some good samskaras. We know what is samskara. Samskara is a predisposition which is there in our mind. Whenever we have an interaction with somebody or something, there is an impression, there is an experience which is there lodged on our mind. So that experience is a sort of impression. It is called predisposition. It is called vasana or samskara. So these samskaras are purified. Our old bad samskaras are forgotten, or rather neutralized, wiped out, and then some new samskaras are created. So that is what it says. So here we end the 100 slokas of the first sarga. From here we will run into this, the next thing. So here at the end of this, okay, now that we have completed this first sarga, say in fact, I recall my old grandfather who was teaching this thing to me very, very lovingly, sitting in the kitchen or somewhere when I was a child. So later I never thought that I would be teaching Ramayana. It so happened that about 20 years ago, one scholar used to come to my house. And then he started reading Ramayana every day, some 2-3 sargas. So that is how it continued for some time. Meanwhile, I got my Guruji's book, that Pulela Ramachandrudu's book. The scholar who was coming to my house, his name was Shivarama Krishna, a scholar from Guntur. Then another excellent book I got was that Pulela Ramachandrudu's book, where he has given word-to-word translation and then summary and some comments on every shloka, on all the 24,000 shlokas. That is a wonderful thing, but unfortunately it is only in Telugu. So that is again a very good guide for following Ramayana. So now we will get into the next chapter and then move fast. So hereafter I will not read all the shlokas. Here and there I will read some shlokas. So now up to this point we saw Narada speaking to Valmiki. And Narada has given a very brief picture of Rama's, his life, his character, etc. And Valmiki's mind is, Narada takes leave of Valmiki, and then Valmiki, dutifully he worships him, and then he takes leave and goes away. Then Valmiki's mind is so saturated with Rama's story, and it is also filled with, the mind has become quiet and tranquil. So he is in that stage. Quiet and tranquil means he has read the story, he has heard the story of a very great person, and when we see the character of a great person, then naturally our mind becomes really mature, calm, wise. So he is in that frame of mind. Then in that happy frame of mind, in that very, very peaceful frame of mind, that afternoon he goes to the bank of one river. There is a river called Tamasa river. So there he just sees water. And he sees everything so nice, so tranquil, because whatever is there internally, it is reflected externally. Suppose you are happy inside, everything else looks happy. If you are sad inside, maybe outside also things may look happy. So here he says, Akardamamidam tirtham bharadvaja nishamaya ramaniyam prasannambu sanmanushya manoyatha. It is in the second sarga. That is, hey Bharadvaja. Bharadvaja is the name of a student, not the Bharadvaja Muni. Somebody from that clan, somebody from that Gotra, what is called Muni Gotra. Bharadvaja, there are some senior people. Bharadvaja, the same Gotra, there are some junior people. So some boy who was a student of Valmiki, hey Bharadvaja, you see how pure this water is? And he doesn't stop with that. He says, Ramaniyam prasannambu sanmanushya manoyatha. It is looking like the mind of a pure-hearted person. Sanmanushya manoyatha. The water is looking so transparent, so pure, like the transparent mind of a pure person. So that is what he says. So Valmiki's similes, they are usually like this. Valmiki's similes, they don't say it is pure like a crystal, it is pure like something else, pure like something glass or something like that. He doesn't say. He uses this type of similes, where the human emotions are also involved in that simile. Then there he sits, and then thereafter a very strange thing happens. A very strange thing happens. That is, when they were just, he finishes his bath at that place, and then he is sitting there. When they were just not sitting, they were just walking around. When they were walking around, nearby they just saw a pair of birds. It was called Krauncha Mithunam, Krauncha birds. A pair of birds, they were actually mating. And then at the same time, one hunter who was there standing below, he shoots an arrow and kills the male bird. So that's what happens. And the male bird falls, and then it rolls on the ground, and then the female bird, it cries in a very, very piteous manner. The bird shrieks in a very, very piteous manner. And Valmiki sees that. And then Valmiki is so moved by that. Valmiki, in fact, the poet in Valmiki comes out at that time. So that is probably the reason why this particular incident is described here, though it has nothing much to do with the story. It has nothing much to do with Ramayana. It has nothing to do with the Rama story. There is a hunter, there is a pair of birds, and then he hits one bird, and then the bird falls down, and then the female bird cries, and then Valmiki's heart melts, and then he becomes immediately, he responds to that. And then he becomes very unhappy. He becomes very unhappy, and involuntarily he utters a sort of, some sort of, not exactly curse, you may say curse also. He involuntarily utters a curse, and he says, Tatah karunaveditvad adharmoyamiti dvijah. Okay. He says, Ma nishada pratishtham tvamagamas shashvati samaha yat krauncha mithunadekam avadhi kamamohitam. So this is the curse. So this particular shloka is so often quoted by so many people and then so much commented upon. If you see the commentaries on this by various commentators, the Sanskrit commentaries, voluminous commentaries in Sanskrit you find on this. So what exactly is Ma nishada? And Sanskrit is such a language where you can split words depending on the level of your scholarship. If you are an ordinary scholar, you will get only some sort of small textual meaning. If you are a very deep scholar in grammar and Mimamsa and all these Vedas, etc., then you will find so many meanings there, so many shades of meanings. So that is the reason why the commentators have written so much on that, but I cannot go into that because I could not read all those commentaries, not necessary also. They are needed only for scholars who are doing some research on this particular shloka. But then the main meaning is like this: He nishada, ma nishada. Ma means no, it is banning something. Ma nishada, he nishada, tvam ma gamaha, shashvati samaha ma gamaha. You will not live long on this earth. Pratishtham shashvati samaha ma gamaha. You will not live long on this earth. So that is one meaning. Simply I am explaining. Pratishtham ma gamaha. Then the second meaning is Pratishtham. The second meaning is in relation to Ramayana, because now the commentators have commented in this way. That is, the Valmiki's words, which have come out in such a nice way, in a metrical manner. This is Manishada Pratishtham Tva Magamas Shashvati Samaha. It is actually a shloka. It is called Anushtup Chanda. Anushtup Chanda means it is according to a particular meter called Anushtup. So in that particular meter there are four quarters, and then in that each quarter there is a fixed number of letters, and there again there is a long letter and short letter. It is so well structured, and it is adaptable for music, etc. So it is so nice. So then, how such beautiful metrical composition has come out from Valmiki's mouth. So on that people have commented. They said it is indicating the story of Ramayana also. So here for the word Ma Nishada, if you take it out, Ma means no. That is one meaning. Ma also means Lakshmi. Lakshmi is also called Ma. Lakshmi, Padmalaya, Padma, Kamala, Shrir, Haripriya, Ma, Indira, Lokamata, Ma, Rama, Mangala Devata. These are all the synonyms for Rama, synonyms for Lakshmi, the wife of Vishnu. If you take a book called Amarakosham, there is a book called Amarakosham. That Amarakosha is a dictionary in Sanskrit. That is a dictionary which gives all the synonyms. Probably that is the first dictionary in the world, we do not know. Maybe we do not know whether there is something in Latin or Greek. But so far as we know, it is the first dictionary, maybe before, maybe first century, second century, not exactly time, I have no idea. But then that is a dictionary in poetry. So there it says, Rama Mangala Devata Bhargav, I just recited that thing, Ma, Rama Mangala Devata, Ma is Lakshmi. Then Ma Nishada. Ma Nishada, that is where Lakshmi resides. A person in whom Lakshmi resides. Who is that person? Srinivasa. Ma is again Sri, Lakshmi. Srinivasa. Srinivasa means, if you want to take a most modern meaning, you can refer to Lord Venkateshwara. So Srinivasa refers to Vishnu. Srinivasa is where the person in whom Lakshmi resides. That is Ma Nishada. Tvam Pratishtham Agamaha. If you have taken out that Ma, instead of saying Ma Gamaha, it will say Pratishtham Agamaha. You have attained Pratishtha, you have attained fame for eternal number of years. Shashvati Samaha, for eternal number of years you have attained fame. For what? For killing that Krauncha Mithunadekam Avadhi Kamamohitam. You have killed one lustful person. You have killed one lustful person who has abducted Sita. So that meaning comes here. So there are two prominent meanings here, but there are many other meanings which refer to Vali. So in the story of Vali, there are some other meaning which are referring to something else. So we need not go into that. One meaning is simply Pratishtham Magamaha. You will not live longer. That is one thing. We do not know what happened to that gentleman, that hunter. The hunter goes away, and then Valmiki also comes away. Then the second meaning is Ma Nishada, O Srinivasa, O Vishnu in whom Lakshmi resides, you have attained eternal fame by killing that lustful Ravana who had abducted Sita. So that is another meaning. So this is what comes out of say Valmiki's mouth involuntarily. So poet, you see, the poet in Valmiki comes out. A poet, you see, poet is a person who has that sensibility to react to things. Poet is not like you and me. You and me are usually thick-skinned. If something happens in front of our eyes, we are not so much bothered. But then a poet is a fellow who is sensitive, who reacts to that. He may not go immediately and then fight, or he may not do anything, but he reacts to that in his own way. That is, he composes some work of art out of it. He says something in such a beautiful way that it becomes a poetry. So that is Shokaha Shlokatvamagataha we are going to see. That is Valmiki's Shoka. That is Valmiki's emotion, that sorrow. That becomes a shloka. The sorrow becomes a shloka. So that is what we are going to see. So here, then Valmiki, after that particular incident, he himself is wondering. He is himself wondering, Padabadhaha Akshara Samaha. What is this? What I have uttered is so perfectly in meter, and it is so adaptable for music, etc. Then he was just wondering about that. Then at that time, something strange happens. Then Lord Brahma comes. Lord Brahma, Ajagama Tato Brahma Lokakarta Swayam Prabhu Chaturmukho Mahateja Drashtum Tam Muni Pungavam. So what happens? Brahma. There is a difference between Brahma and Brahma. So we have to see here this 23rd shloka. Brahma is the four, what we call Chaturmukha Brahma. So in our scheme of things, there is what is called Brahma and Brahma. Most people do not know the difference between Brahma and Brahma, because there is a very famous shloka. What is that? Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This most of us know. But then if we see, the first line says Gurur Brahma, Guru, the teacher is Brahma, the Guru is Vishnu, the Guru is Maheshwara. Then the second line says Guru Sakshat Param Brahma. He is indeed the Supreme Brahma. The second line, there is only the word Brahma and not Brahma. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I bow to that sort of Guru. Then what does it mean? In the first line we said he is Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. The second line he says he is in fact Brahma itself. So that Brahma in the second line refers to what we call the supreme reality. This supreme reality is not a person. The supreme reality is defined as pure consciousness. In fact, in English we write it as Brahman, Brahman. If we write as Brahman, it refers to that supreme reality which we call pure consciousness, whereas Brahma is a personal God whom we have visualized in that consciousness. In that consciousness only, according to our doctrine, our philosophy, Vedanta, let us say, according to Vedanta, in that consciousness only, all these things manifest. There is a manifestation, there is a sustenance for some time, and then dissolution after some time. So this aspect of manifestation is what is called Brahma. You are giving a name to that particular manifestation. We are giving a name, a cosmic action, let us say, a sort of cosmic function, let us say. That cosmic function called creation or manifestation, you are giving a name called Brahma. Another name you are giving that a cosmic function called sustenance, you are calling the name Vishnu. And another aspect, that is cosmic function of dissolution, you are calling the name Shiva or Maheshwara. So these are cosmic functions. Of course, in Purana, you visualize certain things. Brahma is visualized as a person with 4 heads. Why? Because his 4 heads, they represent the 4 Vedas. So Brahma, when Brahma comes here, it means that that Brahma is actually giving approval to Valmiki. He is actually giving some sort of permission or approval to Valmiki. You please go ahead and write the story of Rama in the same metrical composition. A nice shloka has come out of your mouth, a nice metrical composition, which is an Anushtup Chandas which has come out, and in the same Anushtup Chandas you continue. So mostly this whole Ramayana continues mostly in Anushtup Chanda. Of course, in several places there are some other Chandas also. It is not as though it is only in one Chandas, there are several Chandas, but mostly in this particular Chanda. So Brahma comes means, what does it mean? That means it is having the approval of the Veda. That is what we see. In fact, one of our prayer shlokas also we saw, Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi, when the Lord or Supreme Brahman, which is realizable by the Vedas, when he appeared as a human being, then what happened to Vedas? Vedas themselves, they came in the form of Ramayana from the mouth of Valmiki. That is what he says. So that is the prayer shloka we read, Veda Vedye Pare Pumsi Jate Dasharathatmaje, etc. So like that, that is the meaning which we see here. Then Valmiki is very happy. Valmiki invites him and then he gives asanam. He does some puja. There in that puja again, Arghyam, Padyam, etc., he does. And then, even after all that, Valmiki's mind is still thinking about that. Because a poet, a very, very sensitive poet, he can't forget. Suppose you shout at somebody. If you are a very sensitive man, it will be there lingering in your mind. If you are an insensitive man, you shout at a fellow person and forget about it. But then if you are sensitive, you repent. You feel bad. So that is the thing. So Valmiki is again thinking in his own mind about so many meanings. Yes, I have uttered something, but then it is giving so many meanings. Valmiki also is thinking like that. Then Brahma realizes that and he says, my dear boy, don't worry about that. Shlokaye vastvayam baddhaha natra karya vicharana. What you have told is only a shloka. And then it has come by my blessing only. By my wish only. Machchanda devate brahman pravrutteyam saraswati. Machchanda, by my will, by my wish, it has come out from your mouth. And then now you do compose the entire history of Rama. And then you relate to the whole world the righteous, character of Rama. And then he says, he uses certain words. He says that he has only heard the outline of the story from Narada. But then how will he fill up all the details? Brahma says, I am giving you a boon. You are going to get, you will have a vision of all the details. What all has happened. Where Rama sat and how he did smile, and then how Sita smiled and how exactly she spoke and how Lakshmana was sitting. All the details like you see in a screenplay. You see, story writer is different from a person who writes the screenplay. So like that screenplay, the person who has to write every bit of it. A person enters a room, how he enters, what is his demeanor, what is his dress, etc., etc. All those things you will have a vision, and then you write the story of Rama. Prakasham va yadiva rahaha. You see, rahasyancha prakashancha yad vrittam. So whatever was there, everything, there will be no secret from you, everything you will know. Then he also says, yavat sthasyanti girayah saritascha mahitale. As long as the mountains are going to be there on this earth, and then as long as the mighty rivers stay on the earth, till that time this Ramayana Katha will be there on the world, in the world. So as long as the mountains stay means, as long as the earth stays, unless some great calamity comes. So till that time, Ramayana Katha will be alive on earth, and then your fame also will be alive. Yavad Ramasya Katha Tvatkruta Pracharishyati, and your fame will be alive till that time, and you will be happily in heaven, as long as the earth and heavens stay. So that is what he says. And then thereafter, Valmiki again, after Brahma leaves, Valmiki again comes home to his ashram, and then he starts meditating on that. Because Brahma has given a boon. By my boon, you will be having a vision of all the details. So when he comes back, he sits in meditation and then he gets a vision of all these things. Various episodes, all these episodes which were not recounted by Narada. Narada only gave an outline. But there are various small episodes which we are going to see. All those episodes also, he got a vision of all of them. So all those things, they are told in one particular section. This particular section 3, that is Sarga 3 also, is again a summary of the same Ramayana with more details. We need not go into that. We have covered only Narada's words. Then we will come to the Sarga 4, which describes the actual composition of Ramayana. What exactly he what exactly he wrote, Valmiki. Then it says he wrote about 24,000 shlokas, Chaturvimshat Sahasrani shlokan amuktavan Rishihi. So he composed about 24,000 shlokas. And then after all that, he was just wondering, okay, now I have composed a very wonderful book. But then there was no TV in those days. There was no media. There was no publishing house. There was no Penguin. There was no Pelican. Nothing, and there was no YouTube or anything. So how to propagate to the people? How to propagate? Because in olden days, the only way to propagate was to carefully write down all the books. We did not have printing presses in those days, thousands of years ago, and they used to write on palm leaves or on some other bark. If you go to North India, there is another type of bark, Bhurja Patra. The palm leaves are very thin. Thin means very narrow. But then that Bhurja Patra is a wider Patra. Bhurja Patra is something which is a larger paper. So they used to write on that very, very laboriously. Hundreds and hundreds of people used to make copies. Suppose Valmiki wrote one book. If you want 10 copies, so hundreds and hundreds of people should start writing, and then they should keep writing, copying. So like that, one book, one volume can be prepared in 1 month, say. So like that. It's not like, say, not downloading the PDF. So how to propagate? So that is what I was wondering. And at that time, he saw Kusha and Lava, the two sons of Rama, who happened to be there at that time. So we will continue next as to how these Kusha and Lava came and then what do they do. We will continue in the next talk. Harihi Om Tat Sat.